Today we'll be heading into the Bayou and highlighting Disney's Port Orleans Riverside Resort. Hello and welcome to the Let's Go to Disney podcast. I'm Oliver.
And I'm Lucy.
Today is Sunday, July 27th, and you're listening to episode 98, Resort Spotlight, Disney's Port Orleans Riverside Resort. Before we get into today's main topic, here's what's going on in the parks right now. We got some big Hollywood Studios news earlier this week. So Animation Courtyard is getting some major updates. So in 2026, Star Wars Launch Bay will be reimagined into the magic of Disney animation. So this new space is going to be inspired by Disney's Emmy Award-winning short film Once Upon a Studio. And the premise is going to be that animators have stepped out, and in their absence, Disney characters have come to life. The space is going to feature interactive elements where you're going to be able to learn how to draw characters, watch a short film, take part in interactive meet and greets, and then see portraits come to life. There's also going to be an Alice in Wonderland themed playground inspired by concept art from legendary Disney artist Mary Blair, which...
Very legendary.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. It's going to be really cool to see, and I'm very excited to see that. The front of the building is also going to see the return of the iconic Mickey Sorcerer's hat, which hasn't been at Hollywood Studios for several years now. So it's really nice to see that return.
We do have a picture of us in front of that
that's
in 2014.
Right. Yeah,
and that was the last time we saw that hat.
That was the last time we saw it, exactly. And, looking at the concept art, it looks really cool. The refresh is also going to extend beyond the magic of Disney animation. So actually, the entire courtyard is receiving updates. And it's going to be taking inspiration from Walt Disney Studios, like proper, right, in California and Burbank.
I love that idea.
Yeah, 100%. It's also going to include a fresh Disney Junior show at the soundstage. And then to make way for the changes, obviously this means closures, right? So Animation Courtyard and Disney Junior Play and Dance will close on September 25th, 2025, so this year, and it will reopen sometime in 2026. Note that The Little Mermaid, a musical adventure, is going to remain open during the construction, which is nice because it literally just opened.
Opened. That would suck if we're shutting down again.
Yeah,
Actually, I think this is a great thing because we never even go in there.
That's right.
Like, it's just it always felt like just dead space.
No,
wasted
100%.
Space. So obviously they were going to come up with something eventually. So it's exciting to see that something is now going to come to life in there.
For sure. And we've talked about that too, right? Like that whole space needed a refresh. And, when initially we heard about Monsters Inc. Land, and they hadn't announced yet where it was going to be going. We thought this might be somewhere, right? It could be a candidate for Monsters Inc. Land. So now that, it's taken over Muppets Courtyard, it's nice to see that they are doing something with this. It's
completely
just
agree.
something different.
It's exciting. Yeah,
for sure.
Over on the West Coast, Disney announced that the holidays at Disneyland Resort will kick off on November 14th and run through to January 7th. The Disney Festival of Holidays and Disney's Viva Navidad are also going to make their return during this time frame. This means Christmas-themed fireworks, parades, and ride overlays will happen as well. DCA will celebrate the Festival of the Holidays with their usual themed festival food marketplaces as well as seasonal entertainment throughout the park. The decorations and festivities will also extend to the resorts and to downtown Disney. Note that select 70th celebration offerings will remain available during the holiday season, so you can actually enjoy the best of both worlds.
Yeah, for sure. It's nice that they do that because
Agreed.
It is for a limited time, right? So yeah, for sure.
So not a whole lot is new with us from this last week. It was a really nice week off of work for both of us. We went to see the Fantastic Four movie with the kids last night. I think we all enjoyed it. Hey, it was probably the best Fantastic Four movie we've seen, honestly, to date. The kids said that they really enjoyed it too, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I thought it was good. Like a typical Marvel movie, right? Some comedy, good action. It did what it was supposed to do. Like I enjoyed it for sure. Yeah. With that said, let's get into today's main topic, which is Disney's Port Orleans Riverside Resort. So I recently stayed at this resort for a few nights during my late January, early February trip earlier this year. And I've said it before, but essentially what I did was a split stay on that trip. So I did 2 nights at Art of Animation, 2 nights at Pop Century, and then 3 nights at Riverside. I wisely ended the trip at Riverside because you can definitely feel the difference between like a value resort like Art of Animation and Pop versus a moderate resort like Port Orleans Riverside. The rooms are, just a little bit nicer. The resort itself feels a little bit more upscale, and it has like a greater comfort level, I guess I would say overall. And, this isn't to say that the value resorts are bad by any means because they aren't. The moderates are just a little bit better, it totally makes sense, right? And it's a good thing because you are paying more, right, for your overall stay. So you'd expect to get a little bit more for your money for sure. And you do, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Any resort on Disney is great, but yes, I completely agree with you. The moderate level just gives it a little something extra.
For sure.
So Port Orleans Riverside also has an interesting history. It originally opened to the public back in 1992 as Disney's Dixie Landings Resort, which was just down the man-made Sassagoula River from Disney's Port Orleans Resort, which is current-day French Quarter. Dixie Landings initially opened with the Alligator Bayou section, with the Magnolia Bend section being added a short time later. Then, less than a decade later, in April of 2001, the two resorts merged to become Disney's Port Orleans Resort. The Disney Landings Resort became Port Orleans Riverside, and then the original Port Orleans became Disney's Port Orleans French Quarter. Since that time, the resorts have had multiple refurbishments, and current-day rooms are actually quite nice and feel on par with the other moderate rooms on Walt Disney World property. Like we said, the resort is located on the man-made Sassagoula River, which is in the Disney Springs area of Walt Disney World Resort as a whole.
Yeah, exactly. And if you pull it up actually like on the My Disney Experience app or Google Maps, right, you're going to see it's at the end of this river. And just a little further down is French Quarter. Eventually that river forks, right? On the one side is Old Key West. That also has a waterway that leads to Disney Springs. And then on the other side is Saratoga Springs Resort. And then just beyond that is Disney Springs. In terms of theming, as you could probably have guessed, right, it's themed to rural Louisiana. So the resort is split between two distinct areas, which, you know, like Lucy said, are Alligator Bayou and Magnolia Bend. The theming goes beyond the name as well. So Alligator Bayou, like the whole area has a much more like rustic feel, with the buildings have, you know, just like more earthy color tones, and the greenery that seems like a bit wilder and unkept, but not in a bad way, right? It's Disney, so it's like themed that way, and it seems
it's
like
kept unkept.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It fits perfectly in the setting. The buildings themselves are on the smaller side, but there are a lot of them, and there are 2 stories high, surrounded by like beautiful railings that separate essentially the walkway around the rooms from, you know, the rest of the space. And the rooms themselves reflect the theming as well.
Mm-hmm. And then over in Magnolia Bend area of the resort, the grounds are much more manicured. The grass is cut short. The buildings are much larger, so there are fewer buildings, and they are mostly white with the large white columns and then white and green wrought iron railings separating the walkways to the rooms. The walkways around the buildings are manicured as well, and they have water features all around as well. And then the theme is that Southern mansion kind of thing. I kind of always think of that movie Sweet Home Alabama, you know, where they go to the manor there. That's exactly the vibe I get in Magnolia Bend.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love that vibe. It's actually a pretty big resort, not as big as Caribbean Beach, but we would probably compare it to Coronado Springs in terms of surface area and then room count. There's an internal bus loop here as well, just something to be mindful of. Also, depending on what building you end up in on either side of the resort, you could be pretty far from the main lobby and the main pool. On that note, the main lobby here is named Sassagoula Steamboat Company. The lobby has hardwood floors and high ceilings with exposed beams, and it's all painted white. The walls and ceilings have that pale yellow color, and there's a secondary story that you can't access, but you can see the white railings up there.
It's really pretty.
Yeah, it's very pretty.
Yeah.
This is where you'll, of course, find the check-in desks. The area has tiled floors and a similar color palette with hidden Mickeys in the white wrought irons features. The check-in desks are hardwood, and the whole space feels upscale.
Yeah, for sure. You're also going to find the main merchandise store in the lobby here as well. It's named Fulton's General Store, and it's a typical Disney merch store, right? So it sells apparels, accessories, magic bands, and it's also going to have essential items like Band-Aids, toothpaste, in case you forgot, you know, those kinds of things. And they also have a small selection of grocery items. So think like, you know, spreads, toast, milk, that kind of thing. And then they also have resort-specific merchandise, right? And I couldn't find a refrigerator magnet here during my most recent stay, so I actually purchased like a little decoration that basically looks like a magnet without the magnet, right? But it has a little string, so I repurposed it, and it's on our fridge as we speak.
Because that's what we do. If people don't know, each resort we stay in, we grab a magnet.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, you'll also find the vast majority of the dining options here as well. So the main table service is Boatwright's Dining Hall. The main quick service is Riverside Mill Food Court, and the River Roost Lounge is also in the lobby here. Right outside the back doors to the lobby, there's a short bridge that leads to Old Man Island, which is the main pool at the resort. And then the Sassagoula River surrounds the islands and the buildings at the resort, essentially, in like a loose loop around that island. It's a fairly small island, so not all buildings surround it directly, but most do. There's 2 other bridges on the far side of the island that lead to both Alligator Bayou and Magnolia Bend, so it's kind of, you know, a shortcut to the main pool from those areas.
Yeah. So in terms of the layout of the resort, the buildings in the Alligator Bayou section of the resort are numbered. They're buildings 14 through 18, and they're on the left of the main lobby when you're facing it. These rooms are closest to the most amenities, so the main bus stop and the restaurants and merchandise store. There's a quiet pool in this area as well if you prefer to not make the trek over to Old Man Island. Although, to be fair, depending on which building you're in, you could be just as close to Old Man Island. So to the left of that and a little further away from the main island are buildings 24 through 28.
I actually stayed in building 28 when I stayed here in January, and there's a quiet pool in this area as well. And then the closest bus stop to that area of the resort is the West Depot.
Yep. And then coming around Old Man's Island, and then directly on the far side of the main pool are buildings 34 through 38. There's a quiet pool here as well, and depending on which building you're staying in, you could be closest to either the West Depot bus stop or the North Depot one. There's a bridge that leads to Old Man Island right between the 20 and 30 buildings, so it's not so far from the main pool, all things considered, really. And like we said, the buildings have a much more earthy tone to them, and the greenery surrounding the lodge is just wilder. It's definitely got those Bayou vibes for sure, so the theming is definitely on point here.
Yeah, exactly. And then continuing on clockwise from there is the Magnolia Bend area of the resort. So right away, like Lucy was saying earlier, you can tell that there's a distinction because the landscaping is just much more manicured. The grass is cut short, like we were saying. There's like interlock walkways and water features, and then those tall white columns right on the buildings. It just has that Southern Mansion theming for sure. And then right next to the 30 lodges in Alligator Bayou is the Acadian House building of Magnolia Bend. So for reference, this is directly behind Old Man Island on the far side when you're in the main lobby. This is also closest to the North Depot bus stop. And instead of a bunch of small buildings here, like Lucy was saying, there are large buildings shaped like essentially like the letter H, like a large H. And then directly next to Acadian House is Magnolia Terrace. And there's actually a quiet pool in between these two buildings. And then the East Depot station is right behind Magnolia Terrace. There's also a bridge that leads to Old Man Island in between these two buildings. Still going clockwise is Oak Manor. Their closest bus station is the East Depot as well. And there's a pool in between this building and the last one, which is Parterre Place. These two buildings, so Oak Manor and Parterre Place, are about the same distance to the main lobby, and there's a bridge to the main lobby between these two buildings as well, given that they're on the other side of Sassagoula River. They would be about the same distance from the East Depot or South Depot, I would say, which is the bus station at the main lobby. So, you know, depending on where exactly you are in those H-shaped buildings, it would be probably quicker to walk from one to the other. But like I said, you can check on the My Disney Experience app and check, you know, which is closer.
So as you can see, it's by no means a small resort. Between Magnolia Bend and Alligator Bayou, there are definitely a lot of rooms, and they are spread out enough for that internal bus loop to definitely be necessary to avoid having to walk too far to get to the bus stops. So now let's talk room categories. Even with Disney's recent push to streamline the room categories in the resorts across property, Riverside still has several distinct categories, and they're actually kind of confusing, which can definitely be a little bit intimidating or confusing if you are booking your trip yourself, but we'll do our best to break it down here. I remember when Oliver was doing some research, he was like, oh my, there's more. He had to take a pad of paper and pen and write them all out. I just thought it was funny.
Full disclosure here, like when I was prepping this portion of the podcast, legit, I had a pad and paper and I was like, look at all these room categories.
And you've never done that before. That's why I'm mentioning it, because I just found it hilarious.
Because there's not usually that many. And like, don't forget, I stayed here in February. So I booked a room here and I don't remember seeing all these room categories. But anyway.
Yeah, that's the only reason I'm mentioning it is because it was just the fact that he was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All right. So here are the following categories. You have Wood View, River View, Pool View, Standard View, Standard Location, Preferred Room, Preferred Location, Woods View, Fifth Sleeper, Standard View, Fifth Sleeper, Standard Location, Fifth Sleeper, and King Bedrooms. So that's 11 different bookable categories. All of these rooms include 2 queen beds, a seating area, a beverage cooler and coffee maker, the bathroom that has double sinks and a shower tub combo, and a toilet separated by that pocket door, so you can have somebody showering and then somebody getting ready at the same time. The Fifth Sleeper rooms have that small bed that folds down from the TV stand, pretty much the same as you're going to find in all the other resorts across Disney property. And then the king bedrooms obviously traded the 2 queens for 1 king bed. The rooms in the Alligator Bayou area have subtle Princess and the Frog theming, including themed shower curtains and artwork. The color palette is a little bit darker here with that more rustic feel to the rooms, but it's actually very subtle.
Yep.
And then the Magnolia Bend rooms have that lighter color tone with the lighter blue walls and much more white in their bathrooms as well. There are Princess and the Frog touches here as well. And the furniture is also made to look a little bit more upscale, but functionally, these rooms are absolutely identical.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's the decor that changes because by and large, they're identical.
Yep.
So the River View, Woods View, Pool View are pretty self-explanatory, right? Standard View can be pretty much anything. The preferred rooms and preferred location will be close to Sassagoula Steamboat Company, which again is the lobby, and by extension, right, the dining, shopping, and transportation. We're not sure why there's a distinction between these two categories, like so essentially between preferred location and preferred rooms.
True, yeah.
Because from what we can tell, it's the exact same thing. The 5th sleeper rooms will offer that fold-down bed like we were saying, and note that this is going to put you in the Alligator Bayou section of the resort because that's where the 5th sleeper rooms are located as of this recording. Prices for standard rooms start somewhere in the mid-200s per night range during the less busy times, and then room categories with better views obviously go up in price from there. And then during busier times, these rooms are going to be closer to over $400 a night. So that's just standard for moderates across property.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have that wide range there. Now, there's a special category of rooms here that are only found in the Parterre Place building over in Magnolia Bend, and these are the Royal Guest Rooms. So they do have Standard View, Woods View, and Riverview rooms, right, for this category as well. The rooms here are much more themed and also much more expensive. So in the low season, they're going to start at just around, just under $400 per night and then up around $600 per night during peak season. The rooms here have fun details inlaid in the carpet, ornate furnishings with like princess theming and artwork. They also have elaborate headboards that light up fireworks, similar to what you're going to see over at the Disneyland Resort in California. So these rooms are fun. And if you have Disney princess fans in your party, a stay here could be like a dream come true, right? Yes, they're more expensive, but like all things, you get what you pay for. So the theming is really well done in these rooms. So if that's important to you, that's definitely something to consider for sure.
Yes, I 100% agree. These are super cute. And if we were staying here with the kids, we might have to book one of these rooms because obviously our daughter Sophia would obviously like this
Agreed.
a lot.
100%. Yeah.
All right, next up, let's talk dining. Given that this is a moderate resort, there is a table service restaurant here. Having said that, there aren't as many options given the size of this resort. Much like Caribbean Beach, it could definitely have benefited for an additional table service restaurant for sure, especially given that Port Orleans French Quarter also doesn't have a table service restaurant. Having said that, the table service restaurant just off the main lobby is named Boatwright's Dining Hall. The restaurant serves up American eats with inspiration from Louisiana-style Southern cuisine. The dining room is themed to antique shipbuilding. There's a hull of a fishing boat suspended above the dining room, antique tools are mounted on the walls, and the whole restaurant is made with exposed wood, and the tables and chairs are that natural wood color as well. It's only open for dinner, so that's definitely something to note here. It doesn't serve breakfast or lunch, so it's typically open from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. So that's actually a really small window of time, all things considered, especially for the only table service. It's kind of shocking, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
The menu is also pretty small, but they do have some good options. For appetizers, they have a French onion soup, Louisiana barbecued shrimp, pimento cheese fritters. These are really, really good. And then a jambalaya farro salad. For entrees, they have the Taste of the Bayou platter, which has pork ribs, Cajun chicken, smoked sausage, beef brisket, mashed potatoes, mac and cheese, roasted corn, and seasonal veggies. So you get a lot with that one.
Yeah, exactly. And they also have a jambalaya, which I tried back in February, and I enjoyed it. It was good. And they also have a crispy fried chicken, roasted prime rib, shrimp and grits, grilled salmon, and a seafood boil. And then also plant-based option, which is the Creole lentils and quote unquote chorizo. It is in quotations, so I don't know what that is, but it would be plant-based,
beyond
right?
the meat.
Yeah, exactly. And then for desserts, they have the café au lait pot de crème with chocolate fritters, the banana cream pie cheesecake with toasted meringue, caramelized bananas, and caramel sauce, the pecan pie tart with candied pecan crumble, chocolate ganache, and vanilla gelato, and last but certainly not least, the praline bourbon bread pudding with pecan praline sauce, bourbon-soaked raisins, and vanilla ice cream.
Ooh.
I actually tried that in February as well.
That sounds decadent.
It was really good. Yeah, I can't confirm. They also have a decent kids menu with items even your picky littles are going to enjoy, right? So think mac and cheese, cheeseburgers, that kind of thing. And then overall, I would say this is a decent table service restaurant. I enjoyed my meal here, but I wouldn't go out of my way to eat here, right? So unless you're staying here, there's really no reason to come out just for that.
Did you make a dining reservation for that one?
I did, yeah.
You did. I couldn't remember if you had or you just did a walk-up.
It wasn't particularly hard. I think I did it last minute, but
yeah,
I did have a resi. Yep. And then the main quick service restaurant is Riverside Mill Food Court. So this is a massive space with a ton of seating. It's not overly themed, but it fits in with the theming of the resort as a whole. And there's actually mill themed decor and a ton of exposed wood. There is a massive working water mill right next to the restaurant, just outside actually, that is definitely worth checking out and taking a picture of. I have a picture of it. And it's a big quick service with 5 stations that serve a variety of options. So the 5 stations are bakery, grill, pizza and pasta, specialties, and sandwiches. There's also a bunch of grab and go items available as well, just your typical quick service locations. Yeah, exactly. And then for breakfast, they have your standard quick service options. So think platters, waffles, omelets, breakfast sandwiches. They also have oatmeal, yogurt, and a ton of bakery items.
And then for lunch and dinner, they have Southern-inspired cuisine with options like jambalaya, gumbo, mojo roasted chicken, citrus basil salmon, smothered beef and gravy, and a Mediterranean meatball bowl. They have burgers and sandwiches, chicken strips, hot dogs, pizzas, pastas, soups, and salads, among a few other items. They also have a few dessert options and other sweet treats to choose from, but note you cannot find beignets here, so don't go looking for them here.
Yeah.
If you want those, you will have to make the trek over to Scat Cat's Club Cafe over at Port Orleans French Quarter. It's worth the trek, 100%, yeah. So in the lobby, you'll also find the River Roost, which is a lounge. It has a full bar and serves up a wide variety of Southern-inspired drinks and cocktails like margaritas, Mai Tais, mojitos, pina coladas, as well as a healthy selection of beers and wine. They have a small menu of appetizers available from 5 to 10 p.m. They offer a charcuterie board, those pimento cheese fritters, andouille nachos, Cajun shrimp, barbecued wings, and artichoke cake. So quite a few to choose from, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
The real reason to come here, though, is Yeehaw Bob Jackson. He's a local legend and a talented performer. He plays the piano and will play Disney tunes, classics, and kid-friendly songs, along with some fun comedy. It's just fun and wholesome entertainment for people of all ages, and you can usually find him there on Wednesdays through Saturday evenings from 8:30 to 11:45 p.m. Times are definitely subject to change, though, so check with the resort cast members or the My Disney Experience app to see if and when he is performing during your trip.
Yeah, exactly. Then lastly, next to Old Man Island, which again is the main pool here, you're going to find the Muddy Rivers Pool Bar. So it's open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. and serves a menu of light bites and a fun selection of cocktails, beer, and wine. They have a turkey and pimento wrap, a Cajun chicken salad, a Mediterranean curry chickpea salad, charcuterie, hot Cajun boiled peanuts, and Mickey pretzels, of course, and then assorted chips like small chip bags. Not a bad selection, but of course, if you want more options, Riverside Mill Food Court is not far. And that's it for the dining options at the resort proper. Not far, you have a few more options. So Port Orleans French Quarter, right? Like we said, Scat Cat's Club Cafe is where you're going to find those beignets. They have their own quick service there that serves very, very similar menu options. And they also have Scat Club, sorry, that's hard to say, Scat Cat's Club Lounge. That's where in the lobby. We suggest coming here for beignets 100%. Like, yeah, 100%. That is worth the trip.
Hands down. We made that trip. I can't remember which year it was.
Yeah.
And it was nice to see the resorts, but it was totally worth it for the beignets.
Yeah, it was the first time we were walking around both resorts, and we stopped for beignets, and now we've went back every single trip.
Delicious.
But one of the big perks of staying at Port Orleans, specifically in our opinion, is the proximity to Disney Springs. So you're just a short boat ride away from the springs. So if you're looking for just like a ton more options, hop on the boat and you really have like no shortage of dining options there. There's like hundreds between quick service and table service. Like, yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Disney Springs has literally hundreds of options for dining. All right, so next up, let's talk pools and recreation. So we've obviously alluded to it a bunch of times already, but the flagship pool for Riverside is called Old Man Island. The pool area is themed to look like an abandoned sawmill, and there's a 95-foot water slide built into the mill works here, which your kids are going to love for sure. The entire pool island area is about 3.5 acres, so it's quite big and easily accessible by the bridges we were talking about pretty much anywhere on resort property. There is also a small kiddie pool and splash area, so the younger guests in your party will enjoy that as well. And aside from that, you have 5 leisure pools, 3 in Alligator Bayou and 2 in Magnolia Bend. These pools are fine and they are definitely less busy, so if you are looking for a quick dip or just kind of a quiet atmosphere, you can definitely take advantage of those. But outside of that, you don't have to go too far to get to Old Man Island.
Yeah, exactly. And then in terms of other recreation, you have like all other Disney resorts, right? There's daily campfires with free marshmallows and s'mores kits available for a small fee. This is on Old Man Island every night from 6 to 7 p.m. They also have movies under the stars on the lawn of Oak Manor, which is in Magnolia Bend. They do these on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays at 8:30. There are poolside activities as well that your littles are going to be able to take part in over at Old Man Island. These happen every day except Sunday between 12:30 and 2 p.m. And on Tuesday from 3:30 to 4, you can take part in a bag toss competition on the back porch of the main lobby. On Thursdays from 8 to 9 p.m., there are Glow with the Flow parties. So that's at the pool. And they'll typically give the kids like glow sticks, but note that they can't take those into the water. So mom and dad, you're going to have to hold on to them until they're out of the pool, essentially. Yeah. And back at Oak Manor on the lawn there on Tuesdays between 8 and 8:45, there's backyard games. You also have a playground on Old Man Island where the kids can run around. And there's a beautiful running trail along the river where you can run around.
And then for paid activities, there's a catch and release fishing. This is open from 7 a.m. to 1:45 p.m. And then the time slots are 30 minutes and all equipment is provided. There is also a horse-drawn carriage ride around Sassagoula River. This is available in the evenings, and the ride is $65, and it takes you on a 20-minute tour of the resort. The carriage can seat up to 4 adults or 2 adults and 3 children. Reservations are required for this, which can be made in advance or on the day of, subject to availability. But if this is something you're interested, we definitely recommend booking early. There are bike rentals, there are individual bikes or 2 to 4 person Surrey bikes. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 2:30 to 3:30 p.m., you can do a Mickey tie-dye shirt. And then on Sundays from 1 to 3 p.m., you can take part in a mosaic class where you will make your very own Disney creation that you'll be able to bring back with you as a souvenir. There's arts and crafts on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays from 2:30 to 3:30 p.m., where you'll be making a fun Disney-themed art project that you'll be able to keep as well. And then lastly, there is a medicine show arcade located just off the main lobby.
Yeah, exactly. And we've said this before, right? But this is where like the Disney resorts specifically really shine, right? There's always something going on. There's always something to see and do if you're spending a few hours or like a full day at your resort doing like a resort day essentially.
Yeah.
You can always find some activities and there's just always a ton going on. Next up, let's talk location and transportation. So Port Orleans Riverside is in the Disney Springs area of Walt Disney World Resort as a whole. And if you look at it on a map, it's actually the furthest of the Disney Springs resorts to Disney Springs. French Quarter is a touch closer on the Sassagoula River, right? And then Old Key West and Saratoga Springs are even closer. Having said that, that's relative, right? It's all pretty close. You can actually walk from Riverside to French Quarter. It's actually a beautiful walk along the walkway that hugs the river there. And it takes like a little less than 10 minutes, depending on how quickly you walk. And then for transportation options, it's pretty simple. It's buses to everywhere except Disney Springs. And for the Springs, you can also take a boat, but you can take the bus if you prefer. There are 4 bus stations at the resort that form an internal loop essentially. And these are the South Depot, which is again the main station outside the main lobby. The West Depot is in Alligator Bayou. The North Depot is split between Alligator Bayou and Magnolia Bend. And the East Depot is at Magnolia Bend. The pickup order for the parks is West Depot first, then clockwise from there, finishing at South Depot before departing for the parks. And for Disney Springs, it's the same clockwise sequence, but they stopped at South Depot first and East Depot last, departing for the Springs. An important note here is that oftentimes during the least busy times of day, Riverside and French Quarter actually are going to share buses. When that happens, it picks up at French Quarter first, right? Heading to Riverside to do the loop there, and then onto the parks or Disney Springs after. Rest assured, though, that first thing in the morning and around park close and fireworks, when it's like the busiest times, essentially, both resorts have their own buses. So they're going to prioritize essentially bringing the guests specifically to each resort during those busy times.
Yeah, exactly. So getting to Road Trap is not impacted at all. Each resort has their buses so that you have a really good shot at getting to the parks nice and early. We found no differences staying here than any other Disney resort for bus transportation. Buses tend to start running about 90 to 75 minutes or so before early entry, depending on how close the park is to that resort. So at Riverside, right around an hour and 20 minutes or so before early entry is when the buses started arriving. So to give you time for that internal loop and then to travel to the parks.
Yeah, exactly.
So long story short, we'd say that this is the least convenient part of staying at this resort is the 2 resort bus stops. The internal bus loop is actually fine. It's not unlike the resort loop at Coronado Springs, which also has 4 stops. But the extra stop at French Quarter is definitely a bit of a drag and takes up some extra time. Having said that, the boat ride to Disney Springs is actually very pleasant. And if the weather is nice, it's definitely the superior way to get to Disney Springs from the resort for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a super pleasant ride. And with that, let's get into some pros and cons of this resort. So pros, the grounds and the resort itself are beautiful. It's moderate level rooms, right? So they're well appointed and they have everything you could possibly need in terms of comfort. The 5th sleeper option is also really good for families. We also love that they have the royal guest rooms here. It's just nice to have an option, in terms of like room decor and theming, that's just a little bit above and beyond like
Agreed.
what you'll find in your typical room. The boat transportation, like Lucy was saying, to Disney Springs is just a nice option, right? And of course, that ties into the proximity to the Springs, which is a huge pro because you're not far from all of the dining options available there. And not to mention the shopping and everything else they have going on basically at any given time of year. The pool area is also really well themed, and having the water slide can be a big pro for families considering a stay here as well.
Absolutely. And then for cons, it is a large resort. Not the largest by any stretch, but it is a bit spread out. So depending on where you're staying, you could be a little bit further away from the main lobby and then the main pool. For us, it's never a problem, but it's only bus transportation to the parks. So if that's a deal breaker for you, that's definitely something to keep in mind here because you will be taking the bus to each park from this resort. There's no other options. So that ties into the fact that sometimes sharing buses with French Quarter, which is right next door, can be a bit of a drag. Again, during the busiest times of day, this isn't a thing, but outside of peak times, it does add to your total travel time of getting to wherever you're going.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, we'll leave you with our closing thoughts, right? So we really do love Port Orleans Riverside. It's a beautiful resort with good theming throughout. It's surrounded by greenery, so it does have more relaxed vibes when you compare it to other resorts like Caribbean Beach, which is like right in the middle of the action, in the middle of everything, right? We love the fact that it's close to Disney Springs because it's nice to be able to just go to Disney Springs for dinner and, grab a sweet treat and just mosey around, like dipping into the shops and people watching.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And the pool is really good, which is great for families. And like we said, we love the 5th sleeper rooms because that way everyone has their own bed, which is a huge plus for sure, especially for us. I know we really appreciate the 5th
Sophia
sleeper.
goes on this little bed.
Eventually she's going to grow out of it, but we're going to utilize it as long as we can.
But she's so small. She's got
so
another
tiny.
couple years
for
sure.
For sure. So we absolutely love the 5th sleeper for sure. If you could look past the small inconveniences that could be spending a bit more extra time on the buses, getting to and from your destination, this can definitely be a great choice for you and your family for your next trip. We would definitely recommend to stay here for sure.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely. With that said, thank you for joining us today to talk Disney's Port Orleans Riverside Resort. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And as always, if you could leave us a rating and review, it would be greatly appreciated. If you choose to do so, you can leave reviews right on Apple Podcasts. And for Spotify, you can leave a rating.
You can also find us on Instagram and TikTok at Let's Go.to-Disney, as well as on our Facebook page, Let's Go to Disney. We share some helpful reels here as well as some fun ones. The link tree in the show notes will take you to all of our socials.
Have a great day and we'll see you real soon.